Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Bibbidi Bobbidi Books. My name is Ellie and today I'm going to be recommending to you 5 feel-good, happy books. And the reason why I wanted to film this video today is because I feel like January can be quite a challenging month for a lot of people. I know it is for me anyway. I feel like we're coming down from the high of the holiday season, and January is a time where we're all trying to make new goals and we're trying to set ourselves up for the year ahead and to have the best year ever, and that can feel quite overwhelming. So I thought it would be really lovely to kind of chat about some happy, positive, feel-good books to help beat away any January blues if you're experiencing them, and to just start the year off with a smile. So yes, that's what I'm going to do today, and without further ado I'm just going to jump straight in and start showing you the books. So the first book that I want to recommend to you is The On Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. So this is an adult romance book and it is so much fun. I feel like this is absolutely perfect for if you want to get away from the dreary January and just escape to a nice fun tropical rom-com. This is just perfect for that. I mean, look at the cover. It couldn't be further away from the kind of drizzly January weather that we're experiencing at the moment in the UK. So in this story we follow our main protagonist, who is a girl called Olive, and she has a twin sister Amy, and her twin sister is very lucky. She always wins any competition that she enters and she has this perfect life. She's going to marry this perfect man, and the story kind of takes off when we're at Amy's wedding and her luck seems to finally run out because literally everybody at the wedding except for our main character Olive and the best man Ethan end up becoming really unwell because they all have food poisoning from eating some food on the buffet. So Olive's sister, the bride, basically says to her, look Olive, I think that you need to just go on my honeymoon because otherwise it's going to be such a waste, because she won this amazing once in a lifetime, all expenses paid for trip to Hawaii for her honeymoon. And so basically our main character Olive ends up impersonating her twin so that she can go on this fabulous holiday, and she goes with Ethan, the best man, and things kind of take off from there. Olive and Ethan very much don't get on at the beginning of the book, so we've got that fun sort of enemies to lovers trope in here, and of course we've got the fake dating trope because they have to pretend to be a married couple and they obviously have to stay in the honeymoon suite and everything when they go on this holiday. Is everything super convenient in here? Yes. Is it really emotionally impactful and will change my life forever? Probably not, but is it really fun? Absolutely. I will say though, if you're a big fan of steamy, smutty scenes in your romance, then you might not necessarily get on with this one because this is very much fade to black. So yeah, don't go into this one expecting to get lots of sex scenes because that's just not what you're going to get here. But what you are going to get is a lot of really hilarious, funny situations and a kind of sweet, fluffy romance that very much feels like a kind of rom-com movie that you might watch in the cinema. The next book that I want to recommend to you is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. So this of course is a classic in both the sci-fi and the comedy genres, and it is so much fun. It's completely bonkers, it's completely wacky, it's completely ridiculous at times, but it's just such a fun read. It's full of humour, it's full of puns and social commentary and pop culture references, and I feel like if you haven't read this you need to, because I feel like this is the kind of book where it's impossible not to smile while reading it, even if it's just for how silly and ridiculous it is. But if you don't know about this story already, this is basically about a man called Arthur Dent who ends up literally hitchhiking around the galaxy with his best friend Ford Prefect, who he is very surprised to find out at the beginning of the book is actually an alien who has been posing for the last 15 years as an out-of-work actor. This is so fun. Our main character Arthur kind of just finds himself in the most ridiculous situations, and he kind of doesn't really want to be where he is, but he's just trying to make the best of it, and it is just really fun. I would highly recommend this one. So the next book that I want to recommend to you today is actually a middle grade, which is one of my favourite genres to read because middle grade stories are often so positive and uplifting. So I feel like a lot of middle grade books would be perfect to recommend to you for this video. But today I'm going to recommend Amari and the Night Brothers, which is a debut novel written by B.B. Alston. And this is just so much fun. At the heart of this story we have our main character Amari, who is a young girl who is essentially trying to find out what happened to her brother who went missing a while ago and has been presumed dead. And basically the story takes off when Amari discovers this briefcase in her brother's old bedroom, and within the briefcase is actually an invitation to the Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. And this invitation was meant for Amari's eyes only, and it turns out that her brother essentially nominated her to become a part of this secret bureau. And so Amari ends up following in his footsteps and going to compete for a place within this Bureau of Supernatural Affairs. And it is just such a creative and fun story. Our main character Amari basically finds out that there's this whole secret supernatural world where there's sort of aliens and creatures and all manner of supernatural beings that exist but are in hiding from humanity. And she's entered into a series of trials to try and win a place in this Bureau of Supernatural Affairs, and she's pitted against these other kids who are from quite wealthy, well-off families and who have known about the Bureau a lot longer than Amari has. So she's kind of a little bit on the back foot, to say the least, in the beginning of the book. And at the back of her mind is always her brother, so she's constantly trying to find clues and trying to discover what on earth happened to her brother. I love the focus on family and friendship in here. This book has actually been pitched as kind of a crossover between Men in Black and the Nevermore series by Jessica Townsend. So I feel like if you like either of those things, you're probably going to really get on with this story. The next book that I want to recommend to you today is Equal Rights by Terry Pratchett. So this is the third book in his Discworld series, which is this hugely expansive fantasy series, which is all set on the Discworld, which is this flat sort of disc-shaped planet which is resting on the back of 4 giant elephants, which are in turn resting on the back of this giant turtle floating through space. These novels are so much fun and they are so funny, and I know that it can feel quite intimidating perhaps to sort of get into the Discworld because there are so many books in the series, but what I will say is I don't think you have to read them in order. In fact, there are quite a lot of sort of sub-series within the wider Discworld, one of them being the Witches sub-series, which is actually one of my favourites, and it starts with Equal Rights. So I think that this is quite a good book to start with if you're new to the Discworld and you're wanting to get into it. It's certainly one of my favourites. It contains one of my favourite characters called Granny Weatherwack, so it's really lovely to see how she sort of begins as a character in the Discworld series. But I'm going off on a bit of a tangent. What is this book actually about? So in this story, it kind of starts off with this wizard who's coming to the end of his life, and as is tradition, he travels to this distant village to pass his staff of power on to the 8th son of an 8th son so that they can go on and become a wizard themselves. The trouble is no one thought to check that the baby in question was actually a boy, and it turns out the baby is actually a girl. And so yeah, in this world, basically if you're a girl and you have magical abilities, you become a witch. If you're a boy and you have magical abilities, you can go to university to train to be a wizard. That's just the way things are. No one really questions it. But yeah, obviously in this story we have this young girl who basically has to try and confront the injustices of the world, and she's out to kind of prove to everybody that she can be whoever she wants to be. And it's such a lovely story. It's really heartfelt, and yeah, I think any of Terry Pratchett's books would be excellent sort of as a recommendation for a book to lift you out of the January blues, just because of the like creative, funny writing style. His books are always full of quite a lot of satire and social commentary and humour, and they're so creative and wonderful. The next book that I want to recommend to you is The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers. Now, I don't have the physical book with me at the moment because I've actually lent it to my mum, who's currently reading it. But this is such a lovely, refreshingly hopeful sci-fi book. It's the first in a series called the Wayfarers series, and it's possibly one of my favourite books of all time. I really love this story. So in this book, we basically follow a motley crew who are all aboard this ship called the Wayfarer, which is essentially tunneling through space to try and get to this planet. And I mean, it's not really a book about the plot, to be honest. It's all about the characters, it's about the found family, the people who just live on this ship. We've got all sorts of different characters on there. We've got humans, we've got an AI, we've got different alien species, and it is so fascinating kind of finding out about the different characters that live on board the Wayfarer and seeing how they all form relationships, and it is just so fun. We also see kind of humanity from the point of view of other sort of aliens and things who might have a different outlook to us, so that's always fun to kind of analyze our own behaviors and the way that we form relationships and the things that we do from an outsider's point of view. So that was quite fun. There's also a little bit of a romance in here, and it's just such a beautiful story and a wonderful start to a wonderful series that I couldn't recommend highly enough. So if you haven't yet read it, you need to pick up this book. It is such a warm, fuzzy hug of a book. Okay, so I know I said I was only going to recommend 5 books on this video, but I've just had to throw in an extra one on the end here as kind of like an honourable mention. The reason why I call this book an honourable mention is because I feel like I've talked about it quite a lot on this channel, which is why I wasn't going to include it in this video. But now it's come to it, I just can't not pop this on here, because to me this is the epitome of a happy, feel-good, positive book, and that is The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. So this is a very popular standalone adult fantasy, so I'm sure you've probably heard the pitch before, but basically this is a story that follows our main character Linus Baker, who is a middle-aged man who's stuck in a bit of a rut. He works for the department in charge of magical youth as a caseworker, so his job is basically to visit different orphanages which house magical children in order to make sure that they are all running by the book and they are all safe to operate and things like this. And the story kind of kicks off when he gets called in by extremely upper management, who decide to send him to this classified orphanage known as the House in the Cerulean Sea, to basically check that it's running safely, because the House in the Cerulean Sea is actually home to some of the most dangerous magical children, and so they want to find out whether or not it's actually safe to keep this place open, or if they should in fact close it down. And so Linus travels to the House in the Cerulean Sea. He obviously meets the children and he meets the person who runs the orphanage, and it turns into just such a lovely, hopeful, beautiful story. Linus kind of very much challenges his preconceptions and his own prejudices, and he starts to reflect on the rules by which he's always lived his life, and it turns into such a beautiful story. There's also a sort of queer romance in there that's really gorgeous as well, and it's such an uplifting and positive book, so I would highly recommend this one if you haven't got to it already. Okay, so that brings me to the end of this video. I really hope that you've enjoyed it. I hope that you've managed to find something in here that will bring a smile to your face, and yes, I just wish you all the best. I hope you have a really positive and happy year. I'm sending you all best wishes, and yeah, I guess I will see you next time with another video. Bye!